And it's Purple Daily on the road. An on the road edition here. I'm in a hotel. We got Judd Zulgad fresh off a happy hour with our friends at Surly. And we got our friend from NBC Sports Edge, Tyler Forness, fresh out of the 1.0 mock draft sauna. Are you ready to be peppered with dumb draft questions here on this episode, Tyler?
You should see my mentions. I've been peppered with them all day. I'm ready to roll.
Half of them are Judd and me, just like, hey.
Well, they're not questions. They're declarative statements about you being a moron. That's not what we're gonna do.
You know what? I will give a couple people credit. They came with genuine, thoughtful questions, and I appreciate those people.
So, all right, so let's do this here. Purple Daily, Daily Vikings Entertainment. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die. The draft is a big part of that process. If you nail it, and the show is presented by our friends at Surly Brewing Company. We'll talk more. We're a week away from the Purple Daily Surly Draft Party. And TCL, one of the world's best-selling consumer electronics brands. They have a new lineup of award-winning TVs delivering the most entertainment with stunning resolution, all at an affordable cost. Enjoy more of the things you love with TCL. So, all right, we do a mock a day on this show, and the mock a day today is going to be your mock draft, Tyler Forness. Is this your only? Do you just do a 1.0 for NBC Sports Edge? Is this it?
This is it. This is my granddaddy of them all, as you would say. I've got a bunch of 7-round Vikings ones for the Vikings Wire, but this is my predictive mock draft, what I believe is going to happen next Thursday.
Love it. So let's. We're not going to go through every single pick here, but I'm just going to pick out some highlights leading up to the Vikings, and then we can turn you loose. So you've got Trayvon Walker, number 1 to the Jaguars. You've got Malik Willis going number 2 to the Detroit Lions. Aiden Hutchinson 3 to the Texans. Kenny Pickett, the second quarterback off the board, to the Panthers at 6. Kayvon Thibodeau, the Giants at 7. Sauce Gardner as the first cornerback off the board at 11 to the Washington Commanders. I think you're the first person I've seen have the first cornerback go outside the top 10, so put a pin in that. We'll come back to that. And then you have the Vikings trading out of the number 12 slot with the Chargers, moving back to 17. Chargers take Charles Cross at 12. And then the Vikings take Ohio State wide receiver Chris Olave at 17 and pick up an extra third-round pick from the Chargers. So the first question I have, let's just talk about the idea of the Vikings drafting a wide receiver in the first round. How likely is it? Why do you have them doing what they're doing here, which is trading back and drafting a wide receiver? Explain yourself, Tyler Forness.
Absolutely. So there's a lot of different kind of ways you can go about this. And I think wide receiver is probably our third biggest need. But long term, with how this team is currently built and how they're projected to try and maximize this potential window, you need to beef up the offense. I don't understand, and I know Judd's brought this up a few times, why wide receivers not being talked about more on a national level for the Minnesota Vikings. You take a look at the wide receiver room. You have Justin Jefferson, inarguable top 5 receiver in the National Football League. You have Adam Thielen, 32 years old, has had a myriad of soft tissue injuries over the last few years, and he is not getting any younger. KJ Osborn's a fine number 3. Amir Smith-Marset is a massive wild card. You have no idea if you're ever going to get anything from him on the offensive side of the football. BC Johnson's coming off a torn ACL. You take a look at that room. Let's say the absolute worst case scenario happens and Justin Jefferson is out for the year week 1. What are you going to do? You have nothing. You have an offense that's run pretty much out of 11 personnel, and you don't have enough wide receivers in order to maximize it. Wide receiver is a much bigger need long-term than edge and corner, I believe, at this point, considering how you want to build this team. And I think Olave is the best in this draft. He reminds me eerily of Justin Jefferson and how explosive and technical he is with his route running. He knows how to separate with 4.39 40-yard dash, and he's great at tracking the football. He's not going to be phenomenal in open space like Justin Jefferson is. He weighs 180. He needs to get some play strength up. But I think with an NFL strength and conditioning program, he can do that. And you don't have to rely on him right away. He can be your number 3 guy as he slowly adapts to the National Football League. And I think it's a match made in heaven. He can do all the little nuanced things Jefferson can do. Get open in the red zone. Get open short, intermediate, and deep. I love the idea of having 2 similar play styles like that because you can do so many multiple things with those gentlemen.
So I love this thought process, and there's a multitude of reasons why. The first one is what you just said, which is Like we are, I feel like the majority of the mocks are going by what the Vikings have done. Well, the people that ran them are gone, and eventually, Kwesi is not going to do the same thing as Rick. Like right now, he's done a lot of the same things, and it's become a joke. But eventually, he's going to go in a different path, in large part because he's got a coach who's going to emphasize offense. The other thing about this is there are two reasons why I think a receiver is a need that go beyond like JJ or Thielen going down in week one. One is Thielen himself's, been hurt and he's old. So like at some point in time soon, he's going to be done here and it's going to be a great career, but he's going to be gone. That's fine. The other thing is what we're seeing now. And this is a subject that's not been broached, but damn it, it continues to come up right now, week after week after week. And it's this. Jefferson, who personally I love, okay, and who's a great player. But there's two things here. One is in May of 2023, Justin Jefferson can be paid. Now, you can try and slow play it, slow cook it, delay it, but the reality is he will come up for the ability to be paid big time starting a year from May. The other thing is, gentlemen, what are we seeing right now? We are seeing across the league disgruntled wide receivers making hay and getting paid huge
and deleting their teams from their Instagrams out of protest
and making threats. Now, I will say this: I don't expect Justin Jefferson to do the same, but I don't know. And so let's just say, Tyler, that you're right, and the Vikings say, you know what, we need to secure ourselves here. We need to create a cushion here because there's a lot of things at this position. And so I think the reality is there are a multitude of reasons why a wide receiver would not be well, you don't need another one, but very much yeah, you actually do. And this draft is deep there. And this assumption that this team is going to go defense is very much a Zimmer Spielman assumption. I think that you are barking up the right tree. And I would argue with people who dismiss you and say, think about where this team is going and think about the things that we just talked about right there, including the fact that Justin Jefferson in 1 year could start to make noise about, do I want to be here if you are not going to pay me?
Absolutely. And I think this conversation is kind of layered, Judd. You really hit the nail on the head. The second Devontae Adams got moved and signed that big money deal, and then it amplified with Tyreek, I believe that we're going to start seeing a trend where wide receiver rookie contracts are going to become almost as valuable as quarterback rookie contracts. Because when you have that elite weapon, you're able to maximize it on a really small contract. It makes a massive difference for your football team. Just look at what the Niners were able to do last year. They're paying George Kittle big money, Jimmy Garoppolo big money, Deebo Samuel, couple $1 million. It makes a big difference. And I think trying to maximize that is going to be really huge. And I think you're going to see a lot of teams balk at the idea of paying a guy $30 million as a wideout. I'm worried about paying Justin Jefferson $30 million because I don't know what kind of return I'm going to get on that investment. Am I going to get like one win above replacement, like average, like the PFF stat? Am I going to get that? Am I going to get peak efficiency for my dollar? And I think that's a really big question. Plus, when you talk about receiver early, I think one thing we're going to start to see, and we've already seen it the past couple of years, like from 2011 to 2020, we saw 12 Pro Bowlers drafted in the second round, 8 in the first. And most of the Pro Bowls from the first round came from A.J. Green and Julio Jones. So the reason why receivers were sliding in the second round is they were considered to have some sort of flaw. Remember DK Metcalf's atrocious 3-cone? Well, he ended up being pretty dang good. Michael Thomas was too slow. He was pretty good. Devontae Adams was considered too slow and too small for how he played. That ended up pretty good too. So teams are starting to wise up and focus on the good rather than focus on the bad with these receivers at the top. And that's why I think we're seeing so many go early, and they're being able to take advantage of those players as rookie contracts better than a second rounder.
Folks, you just found out why we bring Tyler Forness on a fairly regular basis, because he, off the top of his head, recalls the quote-unquote atrocious 3-cone drill of DK Metcalf. That is why we bring you on our show
Washboard
here.
abs, though, Tyler. Don't ever dismiss the DK's washboard abs. My God, is that man built?
And you know what's funny? A.J. Brown was arguably more built in that picture. Yeah, he went one pick after Irv Smith Jr. So the teams are starting to wise up to this.
Well, I'll tell you what, if you want to have washboard abs like that, Judd, how can the audience start losing weight?
Oh, that's a very, very good question. And I can tell you that you can lose that weight if you contact my friends at Livia Weight Control Centers, who have helped me take off 40 pounds. And right now, have I got an offer for you? It's the new Simple Start plan for only $59. $59, and you can start on a plan that's going to help you lose the weight and, most importantly, keep the weight off. Receive one-on-one personalized and guided support online or in person from the team of experts at Livia. 855-GO-LIVEA, Livia.com, LIVEA.com. Contact them today and get on your way to washboard abs. Someday I'm going to show you mine, but not today.
No, that's okay. That's okay. You guys don't know this because, you can only see like half or a quarter of my body, but I am rocking Chill Boys underneath the fold here. The most comfortable underwear on the planet. Declan, what are you doing? Keep your pants on.
Yeah,
what are you doing?
Okay. I want to show the audience something.
Okay. I was very concerned.
Don't ever interrupt Don't ever interrupt an underwear read by saying, "I want to show the audience something," and then lifting a leg up. Okay.
Great timing. All right. Why I made this uncomfortable transition is because when you get a pair of Chill Boys, you get in this nice little sealed case, okay?
That's great.
This nice little sealed case. You take it. I haven't even had these on yet. I've been waiting to do this. And you get them in these nice pair of underwear. It's nice bamboo fabric. Look at this. Look at this.
Those are beautiful, man.
You could rub it against your skin. It feels that good.
It's wicked. Chill Boys. Don't put them on. Rub them on your face and then put them in the laundry. Chill Boys is a minute. It's a Minnesota-based company. You can find them online at chillboys.com. Let them know Purple Daily and or Score North sent you. You can support them and support us at the same time. So I think one of the, let's keep going down this wide receiver path for just a second here. So I think one of the things we have to figure out here, and by we I mean more like Kwesi and Kevin O'Connell, is how good is KJ Osborn? Because when I bring this up, like I broached the wide receiver thing on Twitter, for instance, and Twitter is always a perfect gauge for what all of society thinks all the time. But a lot of people were pushing back, saying, "Well, you need a wide receiver. KJ Osborn was great last year. You just need KJ Osborn to be given more of an opportunity." And I'd say, this is no disrespect to KJ Osborn. He was a 5th-round pick. I think he's a good number 3 receiver. But if you really want to take this offense from 14th in points per game and have it be a top 5 track meet offense, and you have a chance to draft a Garrett Wilson or a Chris Olave, there's any number of receivers, and we can get Tyler's thoughts on them, I wouldn't get hung up on, but KJ Osborn. Like, am I missing something? Is KJ Osborn a number 1 receiver in waiting if he's just propped up correctly, or is he in the role now that he's probably destined to be in, which shouldn't preclude you from drafting a wide receiver in the first round?
I think it's the latter. I think he's a really good number 3. And I think we need to remember that initially when he was drafted, he wasn't even drafted to play receiver. He was drafted specifically as a returner.
Yeah, so he was really bad. He was bad at that.
Yeah, he was atrociously bad because the 2020 Vikings were one of the worst teams ever in punt returns with 9 or 11 total yards.
It was bad.
Yeah, really bad. So they weren't even drafting him with the idea of playing him a receiver. He ended up just balling out in camp, and they gave him an opportunity, and he took it and ran with it. And I think he did a pretty good job. But when he's a number 3 receiver with Thielen and Jefferson in front of him, you're going to be getting advantageous coverages, and teams are not going to be focusing on you. The second they do, I think you're going to see him exposed. And the one thing that really intrigues me about this new regime, there is absolutely no emotional connection to any of these players except probably Kevin O'Connell to Kirk Cousins because they have that pre-existing relationship. Yeah. They don't have to keep any of these guys. They don't have to keep a KJ Osborn, a Chaz Surratt, a Wyatt Davis, a Patrick Jones. They can just be like, we have no attachment to you. Bye. We're good. And nobody would fault them for it because it's not their talent. So I think that's an underrated element of this whole thing. We genuinely don't know how the regime feels really about anybody at this point, except for Kirk Cousins.
So why did you have the Vikings trading down, and who did you pass to take Olave that, you were on the fence about as a possibility to take if the Vikings do indeed move from 12 to 17?
So the big one that I passed on was Derek Stingley Jr., the corner from LSU. And your mileage may vary on your opinion of Derek Stingley Jr. based on if you think he's going to return to his 2019 form. His 2019 was arguably on the best college football team that's ever existed. So that needs to be taken into context. And he was the number 2 corner as a true freshman, and he was dominant. The second that team was kind of disassembled because like 20-some guys went to the NFL, his performance plummeted. And he also had a soft tissue injury, hamstring, and then you had the Liz Frank his junior year. There was a massive regression on tape, and you have the foot issue. If you're fine with the foot issue, I get it. I don't see any evidence right now that tells me he is going to return to 2019, and there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Plus, with how corner is not as valued in this system and how wide receiver is incredibly valued, I think that leans into how I think Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah is going to approach this draft. With the little information we have, what we know about Kwesi is he is a market manipulator. He knows how to take advantage of the market, and I think that's what he's going to do. He's going to try and add assets where he can, and he's going to take premium players at premium positions early. And I think that's why, because of the big risk factor with Derek Stingley Jr., and what's interesting is his former defensive coordinator is the current defensive backs coach. They also have Jefferson, who they went to war against in practice. Patrick Peterson, this is LSU North, essentially. So if they pass on him, it's going to be a real indictment on what his potential might be, because we're going to have the most information on him. But I'm just not willing to take that risk, and I'm not convinced the Vikings are going to be willing to either.
Can you handicap so the other two guys? So Trent McDuffie, you have sliding down to 26 to the Tennessee Titans. He's a name that's been in there, kind of in the teens. You know, there's some mocks that have the Vikings taking him at 12. And then Sauce Gardner, you have him outside the top 10. So your first cornerback off the board is Sauce Gardner to Washington at 11, and then Stingley 13, like you said. So the other two guys here in Sauce and McDuffie, what are your thoughts on them? And if the Vikings wound up with one of them, let's say at 12 or trading back, what's the value?
I think the value with Sauce at 12 is fantastic. He's got the body of Richard Sherman, and he's better in press coverage. His ball skills are tremendous. In over 1,000 coverage snaps, he did not allow a single touchdown. The only other cornerback in this class that didn't allow a touchdown was Kyler Gordon from Washington, and he had about half the snaps of Sauce Gardner. So that tells you what kind of player he is. He's got tremendous ball skills. You wish he was a little bit more fluid with his hips, but he's got plenty of speed and length in order to kind of make up for it. He would be a fantastic selection at 12, and McDuffie is going to be an interesting one as far as how people view him, because he has arms just a shade under that 30-inch threshold. But he plays like Jair Alexander.
He's got the T-Rex arms. You got to be careful with those guys. Yeah,
a little bit, but he plays sticky in coverage. He's an incredible athlete, very fluid, does not get burned. He may struggle a little bit at the catch point because of those small arms, but Thor Nystrom, my boss over at NBC Sports Edge, calls him McDuffie Island, and he's his cornerback too. I don't blame him. I personally have him as my cornerback 3 behind Stingley, because I do recognize the upside, and I think McDuffie's arms may limit him a little bit. But McDuffie at 12 would be a fine selection. I prefer him with a trade back. But these corners, McDuffie, Booth, and Elam, they could really go anywhere from like 15 to 30, and nothing would surprise, because it's all going to be about choose your flavor.
Tyler, I'm curious on why the Chargers are a potential team that could move up to 12, because I know you had the Vikings trading with them down to 17. Minnesota also getting the Chargers' third-round pick. So kind of two-part question here for you. Number one, why are the Chargers a team that could potentially be another one like Pittsburgh to move up in the draft? And also, if the Vikings trade back, what is the bare minimum that they'd have to get in like draft compensation, future draft picks, if they were to do that?
So I think we'll start with the second part of that question, Declan, and it's really based on where they're going to move to and how far they have to go down. If you're going down 20 or lower, you better pick up a top 50-ish pick from next year. There really is no ifs, ands, or buts. According to the Rich Hill trade chart, 79 is pretty much equal compensation from moving from 17 to 12. So I really had no issue as far as that slotting. But the reason why the Chargers can move up is, do you remember Storm Norton?
Oh, yeah. One of the greatest football names of all time. Ever. Absolutely, yes.
Greatest football names of all time, cannot play tackle to save his life. Mm-hmm. He started a bunch of games for the Chargers at left tackle last year. They found Rashawn Slater at 13, and he ended up becoming a borderline all-pro right away out of the block. Charles Cross identifies in a very similar manner to Rashawn Slater. He's got some traits that can project out as a run blocker, but he had over 1,300 protection snaps basically across 2 starting seasons with the Mike Leach air raid. Incredibly fluid. He's got quickness. He knows how to mirror in protections, and guys just don't get past it. I think when you're talking about an offense that really wants to push the ball down the field with Justin Herbert, having bookend tackles means the world. And I think that kind of value, Mike Renner from Pro Football Focus has him as his number 3 overall player and number 1 tackle above Evan Neal and Ekem Ekwonu. So there are people that think the world of Charles Cross. I think if you're getting him at 12, that's a fantastic value, and it fits how they want to play football.
So how much would it change the dynamic here potentially too, if a quarterback did fall to 12? Because I really don't think that the Vikings would take one in 2022. If one of your top 2 QBs, who clearly in your draft are both gone, but let's say one of those 2 slips through the cracks and gets down to 12, how much would that change the potential of a trade that the Vikings would be willing to go back if you had a team that saw Pickett there and was desperate for a quarterback and was willing to make a trade? Because my dream until it's dead will be that the Vikings trade back and secure a first round 2023 pick in said trade.
Because of where this quarterback class is at in comparison to last year and next year, because next year's quarterback class looks absolutely bonkers. I don't know if you're going to be able to get a first round pick, and that's just being honest. I would love it, but you have the Pittsburgh Steelers, and although they tragically lost Dwayne Haskins from their quarterback room, they signed Mitch Trubisky so they didn't have to panic and they didn't have to force it. I don't know if they're going to be willing to pay that kind of capital to go get Kenny Pickett, who I wouldn't touch until the 3rd round, because I think he has no dominant trait and he's average across the board. I think your best bet in order to get a first rounder next year is going to be a team like the Buffalo Bills. They see a guy that they think can take their offense to the next level. They give you 25 in next year's first to go get that receiver to pair with Diggs and Gabe Davis and Jamison Crowder. I think that's probably going to be your best bet to get that first round pick. I don't know if anybody's going to be willing to do that for a quarterback.
And then, of course, if the Bills go as deep as we think they're going to go, then really you'd be sitting on like the 31st or 32nd pick. And then if the Vikings, so you might have, let's say the Vikings make the playoffs, then you'd have picks 22 and 31 or something. Is that enough combined with other picks and future picks to move up into the top 6 to get it? Like, that's the thing. Like, the Bills sound great, but how much value is there? If we're going with Judd's goal of stockpile assets for next year's first round so you can maneuver into the top 10 or into the top 5, I don't know if the Bills help you enough there. I have a couple other questions here as we go later on. Like, you did a first round mock draft here, which people can find. I'm actually finding it on Yahoo Sports too, so it's all over the internet. But 2nd and 3rd round value. Throw out some names. Let me start with wide receiver, because that's the sort of the theme of the episode to start with. What are the chances, let's say the Vikings go cornerback or a different position in the first round. What are the chances that, like, George Pickens is available somewhere in the 2nd round for the Vikings? Or who's the Western Michigan kid? Is it Sky Moore? Like let's start with wide receivers in the 2nd, 3rd round, and then other positions and names that you find intriguing that the Vikings should have their eyes on.
Absolutely. I think Pickens is a very fascinating one. He tore his ACL in spring practice last year, ended up playing in 4 games at the end of the year, came back really quick, was really only effective in vertical go routes. He had a wild catch in the national championship game that helped put them into scoring range, and they ended up scoring off of that possession. Pickens needs a little bit of work from the technical side. He needs to learn a full route tree, because while we talk about guys who play in like offenses that are spreads where they're running like 4 or 5 routes, he did the same thing, except they didn't really run any routes because they ran the football so much at Georgia, and Kirby Smart just does not prioritize the passing game one bit. So he needs to learn a little bit of that. But his hands are tremendous. He caught 68.8% of his contested catches. He barely drops anything, has tremendous body control in the air. So when you're talking about an X-style receiver, George Pickens is a fantastic ad. And I think you could get him at a value at 46 because you're talking about that potential injury tax. There were some people in the industry who had him as a top 3 receiver going into the year, and they were still accounting for the fact that there was that ACL tear. Guys like Jameson Williams really came out of nowhere. Drake London did as well. Like, there was some potential, but Pickens was highly thought of. And then when you transition to Sky Moore, he's a short guy. He's 5'10", a $195. But one thing that he does really well is he's incredible with his releases. He knows how to get off the line of scrimmage and beat press. He's incredibly quick. He had a 1.49 timed 10-yard split, so he's got that elite level quickness. And he has a 4.41 40 to be able to keep that separation off the line of scrimmage. So even though he's a smaller guy, he can win on the outside. Might be best utilized in the slot so he can really manipulate that quickness and take advantage of slot corners and linebackers. But Sky Moore's got a lot of talent, and he's tremendous with the ball in his hands in the open field. If Christian Watson potentially slides on there, I know he's been talked about ad nauseum. That's a fantastic one. A sleeper that I want to throw at you, Calvin Austin III from Memphis. He's a guy that's probably going to go top 50. He has the same athletic profile. His athletic comp is Tyreek Hill. Incredibly fast, incredibly quick. All of his speed and agility drills tested in the 90th percentile or higher. But he's 5'7.5", $180. He's not Tutu Atwell.
Wow.
He's a lot closer to Deshaun Jackson, but the second the ball gets in his hands, things happen. And teams prioritize getting players the ball in space and letting things happen. The Senior Bowl proved he could be a real receiver. It showed a very large catch radius for somebody his size. Nuance in his routes to get open. I love Calvin Austin, and I think he could be a really nice add for a team in the second round.
Yeah, love it.
How deep is this draft at center? Like, can you find, because they're going to have to find one. I'm convinced that Bradbury will start probably in training camp and probably the season, but long term, I don't think he's going to be the guy. Is there a center in this draft who you don't have to take, for instance, first round, but that you can eventually plug in who could take Bradbury's place and just become a solid functional player who does not get lifted off the line of scrimmage by big tackles?
So it depends on how much you're going to value that wide zone pass blocking. One thing that's interesting in the Vikings compared to the Rams ran a lot of inside zone. They did run wide zone, but their focus in the running game is more inside zone. So is Kevin O'Connell going to try and do the same thing with this team? If you do, you can really afford to get a bigger center that's got more sand in the pants, that's not going to get forklifted off the ground
Sand in the
consistently.
pants.
Sit football.
Yeah.
Sand in the pants.
So there are two guys that we can talk about. If you want to go with the more athletic center, Cole Strange from Tennessee Chattanooga went to the Senior Bowl, and the offensive line, the whole week really did not play well, but Cole Strange stood out. He was ferocious. He had really good technique. He was not getting forklifted. He does not have the best anchor in the world, but he wasn't getting lifted off the ground with any form of consistency or really at all. So I think that that's going to be a guy that you could target probably at 77. Cam Jurgens from Nebraska, bigger guy, really good athlete, excellent technique, knows how to play the position and knows how to block and not lose. And that's a guy that you could get. Yeah, he really did. Dane Brugler from The Athletic. He releases the beast every year. Had him as a second-round grade and a top 50 player. That's a guy that you can trust, that he watches every ounce of film he can, does a ton of background. The beast, 400 scouting reports, 380,000 words. So you know that he's putting in the time and the work. Jurgens could go in the second round. I don't know how far he might fall. Somewhere between round 2 and round 4 is where you're going to have to pick him up. But I think he could be a really nice player for whoever wants to take him.
Okay. All right, give us, because we got to get to a random Viking of the week here, and we are going to keep Tyler is an ace at this game, and he's going to team up with Declan to get Declan a point. Give us your hottest draft take, and maybe it's already in print in your mock draft when you have Trayvon Walker going number 1 and Malik Willis going number 2. Like those are bold takes, but give us your hottest draft take right now.
Ooh, hottest draft take. I probably got 2 of them. Logan Hall, the defensive lineman from Houston, should be drafted in the top 20, but won't because he's 6'6", 283 and plays 3 technique. But the guy knows how to use power and leverage to his advantage, and he's a tremendous football player. He's going to see a rise like Peyton Turner did last year. And I'm going to go with Malik Willis. He is the next Michael Vick.
Wow.
There are 2 players in NFL history that have that kind of skill set and that kind of athletic traits. It's Malik Willis and Michael Vick. Like, if you develop him, it's Michael Vick.
Okay, let me ask this, because I think once Kirk signed the contract extension, and there's a no trade clause. Financially, he is locked in through 2023. if the Vikings feel the same way you do about Malik Willis and they love him and they're sitting there for whatever reason and he falls to 12, I have said, even if you think there's a 75% chance he is the next Michael Vick or, Josh Allen, or name your mobile quarterback with a big arm, big athleticism, I think the value of the rookie scale contract being negated for the first 2 years is enough for me to not draft him. Because I think like a huge part of why you would draft a quarterback, whether it's Malik Willis or anyone, is to get 5 years of a rookie scale contract. And if you've got Kirk on the books for the first 2 years, I just don't know that it's worth it. So, I mean, what would you do? Let's say you're the Vikings. You got Kirk signed, but you love Malik Willis, and he's just sitting there. Are you trading back? Is there any chance you would pull the trigger on that draft pick and just sit him for a year?
If Malik Willis miraculously ended up at 12, because I genuinely think he's going to go at 2 to the Lions. If he is there at 12, I'm hiring the Secret Service to run me up to the podium, and I'm taking him.
Oh, wow.
Like, I'm sorry. If you believe you have a Michael Vick type talent and you don't take him, you don't deserve a job in the National Football League when your quarterback is not of that tier. He is a tier above and beyond what you currently have that can take you to a level that you have never seen before. You deal with it. You take great football players and you deal with the consequences later. But if you have the ability to take him, you do it. And even though you can't maximize the 5 years of a rookie deal, we're going to see it with guys like Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, what they can do on those non-rookie deals. Peyton Manning won a Super Bowl, not on a rookie deal. So did Drew Brees. So you get those elite level quarterbacks, you can still win a Super Bowl. So I'm taking him and I'm dealing with it.
So if this is the case, what will he do for the Lions franchise that has been almost always crap since I was born? So you're saying, so like, let's say this all comes to fruition. Malik turns out to be great. Are you saying that the division as we know it will shift?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. I'm saying that I believe in Dan Campbell. But we can meme him all we want, and we can just be like, yeah, he's a football guy. He's going to bite kneecaps. But you know what? Those players played their asses off. They were in games they had no business being competitive in. Yeah, remember that Rams game from week 5? They were leading that game in the fourth quarter. They had no business playing well. They continue to play well week in and week out. They lost by 2 to the Vikings on basically a miracle. And they beat the Vikings in week 13, week 14? Yeah. This is a legit team once they get talent, and they are starting to build it. They have 3 picks in the top 34. They really did a number on the trenches. The trenches is the one spot where they don't desperately need talent. They need it on the skill positions. They're starting to build it. You put a quarterback that has a very high floor because of his rushing ability and his just dynamic arm talent, which I wrote a piece for the Vikings Wire a few months ago, how he could be the next Josh Allen because their parallels are eerily similar. You get somebody to develop that young man, and you're talking a potential Hall of Famer and multi-Super Bowl and MVP champion.
Dude, I would. It would be a blast if the Vikings did that. I think they're so committed to Kirk that I think they would. I legitimately think they would trade out. And I'm with you. I don't think he's sitting there at 12. I think it's absurd. Like the fact that a month or two ago, not to rip on, some of the noted mockers, but like you had prominent mock drafters that had him outside the top 10. It's like no chance. There's so many desperate teams looking for franchise-changing quarterbacks. Someone's taking a shot on that dude. And I wouldn't be shocked if you're right, if he goes number 2. All right, boys, we got to get to a random Viking of the week here. But first, we are 1 week away from one of the most exciting nights since we started doing Purple Daily a couple years ago. It's the Surly Purple Daily Draft Party, where Surly has stepped up to the plate with a one-night-only, tap-room-only special Purple Daily beer called Before I Die Minnesota Ale, I should say. So, Judd, tell the audience. So the doors open at 3. We're going to get there pretty early. We're going to start on YouTube at 6 o'clock, but we want to meet as many people as possible. So please come and hang out and cheers a couple drinks and watch the first night of the draft with us.
I saw a picture tonight for the first time of Before I Die. And let me tell you right now, yes, that's right. I saw it. It's going to be coming out. We're going to have it in our hands soon to show the listeners and viewers what perfection in a glass looks like. Before I Die beer looks perfect. And yes, we are going to enjoy those. We are going to enjoy the draft. There will be food, including the great Surly pizza available. And to Phil's point, the doors open at 3. We'll probably be there right around 3 o'clock. We'll start at 6. We'll go until the draft is done. Let's just say, gentlemen, the tap room is ready for action. I checked it out tonight firsthand because I believe in getting there. I believe in like
research and development.
Yeah,
yes.
exactly right. I believe in looking around to say, hey, are all the napkins in place? And sure enough, they are. It will be It'll be a great. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So be quiet. So shut up. I had a few beers. Okay. I had a few beers, but I looked around and everything was in place. A week from Thursday.
You also have a chance to win a 65-inch 5 Series TCL Google Smart TV. So come on down and let's have a good time. Let's see when maybe the Vikings trade back, maybe they trade up. I don't know. We'll be there and we'll have a hot mic for you guys to hang out and give your takes as well. Also, a shout out to our friends at Dennis Kirk. So as the summer months approach, riding season, if you like to get up and down the state of Minnesota and ride your Harley, your Indian, your Metric Cruiser, whatever it is, your sport bike, Dennis Kirk has you covered with over 160,000 parts and accessories in stock, free shipping on orders over $89, and same-day shipping on orders placed before 8 p.m. Ride more, wait less, DennisKirk.com. All right, boys, it's time for the random Viking of the week. This is a handicap match. It's Tyler Forness and Declan Goff against Judd Zulgad. Both of these guys have wrestling shirts on and everything.
Yeah. Quit trying to intimidate me. Quit trying to bully me. All right.
So here's how this works. Every week, every Thursday, we usually pit Judd versus Declan, and this time he has his tag team partner Tyler with him, who's helped with a couple victories. Judd has a 21-11 all-time lead on Declan in Random Viking of the Week. I throw out a series of clues. You guys can guess up to 3 incorrect guesses before you're eliminated. You can shout out guesses whenever you want. You can ask me questions if you want. I can refuse to answer because I run the game. These are my rules. So let's start with the first clue here, boys. Is everyone ready?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Okay. Random Viking of the Week. And you guys communicate however you want. Just shout out answers or collaborate, whatever. Declan and Tyler. All right. This Random Viking of the Week originally hails from Carrington, North Dakota.
Jim Kleinsasser.
Ah.
Judd wins.
I was just gonna say it too.
I got it. You got me last time on Wiggins. You got me, so I wasn't gonna wait. Not this time. Come on, you bring it on.
Wow.
The second you said Carrington, North Dakota, because I lived in Fargo for almost a decade, my mind's thinking, okay, who played at those schools? And then it went to North Dakota, and then Jim Kleinsasser popped in my head, and good old quick draw Judd. Hold it out of his hat. Well
Judd,
done.
Amazing.
That's more impressive than my T-Jack and Brock Lesnar poll.
Why would you start with Carrington, North Dakota? Like they're like, don't you?
Yes, let's turn this on Mackey. Yes, turn it on Mackey. This is Mackey's fault. I'm blaming Mackey. This is BS, man.
Like,
Okay. If I would have, no, be honest. I'm gonna, because we know the answer now, but I'm gonna put the clues in a different order here, and you guys tell me with all honesty how quickly you would have picked up on the scent here. Okay, because I thought about this too. I'm like, everyone knows he's from North Dakota, but maybe I can throw the first one out and then throw him off the scent. I was hoping to throw you off the scent.
Bismarck or Fargo. You said Carrington.
I'm on a heater.
It's my fault.
Don't try and stymie the
Dog
heater.
pile Phil here. This is great.
So I would have, if I could go back, I would have started with this Random Viking of the Week's parents' names are Kathy and Carter. Would you guys have known that? Okay.
No.
This Random Viking of the Week made a cameo in the rom-com 51st Dates.
I would have, yes. Jim Kleinsasser.
You would have gotten that one?
Yeah.
Okay. Sean Astin's character is watching a Vikings. Right. He's like a Vikings fan, right? If I remember right. And he's like Jim Kleinsasser.
Watches it like every day, right?
Yeah. Yes, the same game. Yep.
Or no, Sheeta. Yeah, he.
They watched the same
for
game.
her sake. That's right.
Yeah.
Against the Lions.
He was twice named to the USA Today All-Joe team, honoring hard workers and under-recognized players. Of course, when we got to this point, you would have figured it out. But his NFL head coaches were Dennis Green, Mike Tice, Brad Childress, and Leslie Frazier.
Right.
I think he's the only guy that played for all 4 of those coaches.
Played the H-back too, because he was drafted as a tight end, and I think it was Ticey, right? Who moved him to, or who called him H-back?
It was Dennis Green, because he had the 3 fumble game his rookie year against Chicago, and we lost 23-22.
That's right. 99, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
Dude, also had a mean patch of forearm hair too, Jim Kleinsasser.
He also played for an entire quarter with a broken leg and torn ACL.
Oh, he's incredible.
He
was tough as nails. hockey
Yeah,
player,
dude.
badass.
Yeah, he is more man than the brawny man. Absolutely.
Anyway,
All right. Well, congratulations. I'm gonna take the L on that one. All right, that was just.
I won.
Yeah, no
Why are
win.
we-
We're gonna
No,
add
you
a new
won. That was
column.
good.
No, it's
Why
a,
are we
new, it's a
shooting
third
down
column.
my-
It's just L,
my
and it's for
victory?
Mackie, and he gets the L.
It's
Put this
okay,
on the TikTok.
Declan. We're 2-0 still with a no contest.
We are.
We're
We are.
in a
Put
good
this on the
spot.
TikTok, boys.
We're getting our rematch here, Tyler.
I won.
Oh my gosh. All right, before we get out of here, a shout out to our friends at Federated Mutual Insurance Company. They help keep the lights on for us at Score North on a daily basis. And they can not only help keep the lights on at your business, which is like kind of the bare minimum, they're here to maximize the success of your business through risk management tools and resources and over 100 years of experience working with specialized industries. Find out more how they can help you at federatedinsurance.com. And remember, at Federated, it's our business to protect yours. Looking forward to seeing everyone at the Surly Purple Daily Draft Party next Thursday night. Thanks to Tyler Forness. Go check out his work, NBC Sports Edge, Vikings Wire, also Climb in the Pocket. You have a podcast once a week. Where else can people find you, Tyler?
Absolutely. You can find me on Twitter at @TheRealForno. If you once you guys are done with your show, come check out ours. We're going to be live all 3 nights and hopefully have all 3 of you guys on at some point. So
Awesome, man.
It's going to be a lot of fun. Monday nights, 8 Central, The Real Forno Show. We have a good time.
Tyler's the coolest football nerd and wrestling nerd that we know. We love having him on the show, and we'll do it again sometime soon here. All right, boys, that is Purple Daily Vikings entertainment. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die. It's not that much to ask.